Froome has absolutely blown the field apart, and he has taken a major scalp in Tom Dumoulin here. The best time trialist has been defeated by the best stage racer of his generation, you have to say. Chris Froome has stamped his authority on this individual time trial, and increasingly he has demoralised the rest of the fields who might have dreamt at the beginning of wearing the yellow jersey. Fat chance of that happening. It belongs to Chris Froome, and his hold on it gets stronger and stronger with each passing stage. A brilliant ride from a brilliant rider.
Of course, it's fantastic that I open up my lead today, but we can't relax now. We can't relax and switch off. We've got to see this through right to the end.
Hard to imagine Sky and Chris Froome not seeing it through to the end from this position. 2 days from Paris, and he leads Bauke Mollema by 3 minutes 52. Mollema has 24 seconds over Adam Yates, and Yates has 21 over Nairo Quintana. Romain Bardet is 20 seconds behind him and 3 seconds ahead of Richie Porte, so it's packed from second place to sixth. In fact, there's 1 minute and 8 seconds from Mollema to Porte, and exactly that amount from Porte to Fabio Aru in seventh. Alejandro Valverde, Louis Meintjes and Dan Martin complete the top 10. So, as Chris Froome continues to flood the market and dilute the resale value of signed yellow jerseys on the way to his third Tour de France title, some people are daring to compare him to Eddie Merckx. Some are even daring to ask Eddie Merckx whether the comparison is valid.
I think so, especially in the stage races. Froome is even better than Eddie Merckx, so maybe he can win 5-6 Tour de France, but, you know, he focuses always on the Tour de France, and, yeah, I was riding all the years.
Yes, he was riding all the years and winning all the races. They call him the cannibal Eddie Merckx, but only because it sounded better than the omnivore. When Chris Froome wins the Tour, the Giro, Flèche Wallonne, Paris-Nice and Paris-Roubaix in the same year, then he can start referring to himself in the third person. Actually, Froome prefers the first person plural, and with good reason. He's got by far the strongest team in this year's race. Daniel Friebe raises the question of whether it might be the strongest ever.
Not everyone has been riveted by Team Sky's brilliance at this Tour de France, but Chris Froome and his merry men are at least commanding universal, if grudging, respect. Froome is well en route to bringing Sky their 4th Tour title in 5 years. The way that the men in black have outnumbered, asphyxiated and obliterated their opposition has also prompted a question. Is this the best team the Tour de France has ever seen?
I think, in my opinion, the greatest Tour de France team in history would have been the Carrera team in '87.
Of course.
Then after that, then, like in the modern cycling, maybe, yes, they're definitely the strongest team on in the Tour de France, yeah.
J'ai connu des équipes, Raphaël Gimoni d'antan, Anquetil, le garde rouge devant Loé. Mais comme celle-là, comme Sky, meilleure équipe depuis le cyclisme existe.
I think that you can go back to the 70s and the 80s and look at teams like the Renault team and then the La Viclair team, and the La Viclair team that Greg LeMond had when he became the first English speaker to win the Tour was full of superstars, guys again who could have led other teams and went on to win other Grand Tours themselves as well.
Non, je pense que la Sky est moins forte que l'équipe que la Discovery par exemple. À mon époque tout au moins, je pense que la Molteni aussi était vraiment une très très grande équipe. C'est vrai que le cyclisme a changé également, hein. C'est que maintenant l'équipe Sky a les moyens de s'assurer les services, par exemple d'un Geraint Thomas ou d'un Pouls qui pourrait presque être leader dans une autre équipe.
As with chickens and eggs, one issue with evaluating great cycling teams and their leaders is that it's sometimes hard to tell which comes first, and one cannot generally exist without the other. Today, Team Sky's annual budget of around 28 million euros makes them the rich kids, the doughboys of the pro peloton. Cannondale Drapac's boss, Jonathan Vaughters, said the other day that his best paid rider at this Tour de France would be Sky's 7th. All of which raises another possibility. That Sky's supremacy might really just be the story of paychecks and big imbalances.
Money has a lot to do with it. It's the base of it to select the riders, but getting the right group together, creating the right group, having the guys train well, it's a lot behind it than just money. Then you can see on the mountains that it looks like everyone's hesitating and not wanting to attack, but the truth is, when you look at the numbers and you download the files in the evenings, it's just not possible to attack with them pulling on the front. And if you do attack, everyone's scared of being dropped off the back if they get caught again. So, yeah, the team they put together is great. Well done to them.
So if money can't make Chris Froome's pedals go round, then neither can his 8 teammates. He also hasn't always needed their help, or indeed a bike or pedals, over the past 3 weeks.
Well, I think we've got a better chance of being struck by lightning than seeing a repeat of Mont Ventoux today. 146 kilometres of climbing through possible thunderstorms, taking the riders from Albertville along the shores of Lake Annecy and over a couple of warm-up cols before the big two at the back end of the stage. The super category Monte de Bizan is 1,723 metres. After that, the riders revisit part of yesterday's time trial course and then hit the foot of the climb up to Saint-Gervais-Mont Blanc. As well as a big day in the GC, it's a possibly decisive day for Rafał Majka in the King of the Mountains jersey should he get in the break. No need for Peter Sagan to do the same. With Mark Cavendish gone, his lead over Marcel Kittel exceeds the number of green jersey points left in the race. Now, Majka was in the break, but so was the second-place rider in the mountains competition, Thomas de Gendt, and they seem to have made a deal to keep the race mathematically alive, as de Gendt led over the 2 first-category climbs with Majka right behind him. They were in a breakaway group of 20 containing Astana's Alexei Lutsenko, and behind them Astana threatened a mass attack off the front of the yellow jersey group before settling for driving the field instead. The result was a high pace and a short leash for the breakaway. Approaching the Monte de Bizan, there was the worrying sight of Adam Yates off the back and being paced by a couple of teammates. The reason apparently was mechanical, though not physical, and once he rejoined he got a mate's push from Sky's Luke Rowe to propel him up the bunch. This was physical, though. Tom Dumoulin hitting the deck after a touch of wheels ahead of him, and minutes later he was out of the race in tears with reported wrist and elbow injuries. Now, de Gendt finally dropped back, allowing Majka to take the points at the top of the Monte de Bizan that confirmed him as this year's King of the Mountains, as long as he finishes the race, of course. And that suddenly became a live issue as the rain started on the descent.
Yellow jersey group at 1 minute of the lone leader. Well, these riders have shown no respect for the heavy rain. It is getting brighter now, and it is clearing up at the finish line. They might get a dryish climb.
Well, they're also now, Phil, not too far away from Combloux, the little town you were talking about just a few moments ago, and that's when all of a sudden they will pick up the little climb of Domoncy, but they actually don't go up it on this occasion. They go down it, and there's a couple of treacherous little corners on that descent too before they get across. I'm getting a bit of information over the radio that Romain Sicard crashed just a few moments ago. I heard it mentioned on race radio, but I never actually saw him as we came around that roundabout.
Let's hope he can remount. 15 kilometres to go to the finish, just under 10 miles to go. This is the little descents and the switchbacks. This is a lovely town, by the way. A lot of spectators have stayed here for 2 days to watch the time trial come through, and today.
This is the descent of the Côte de Domoncy, which in 1980 saw the World Championship go to Bernard Hinault. In 1964, Salange saw the World Championships go to, in the amateur version, to Eddy Merckx. Oh, taking all kinds of risks. As you can see, these corners, I'm not quite sure about that aerodynamic position when we're going down this wet and scary descent. Oh, and I'm actually just hearing that Bauke Mollema has also had an accident on the descent, and that's it. Well, you can't see his number there, but he's at the back of this group of Trek Segafredo riders. He's back on his bike and riding and just about to make contact again. Well, we expected a lot of fireworks from a day like this, but certainly the rain has come in to make it a little bit more complicated. That's Mollema just sitting on the back. In fact, it's not one of his teammates in front of him. It is one of his teammates. He's got 2 teammates just in front of him, and he comes now under the banner indicating 15 kilometres to go. That gives him 5 kilometres or so before the start of this final climb of the day. And as I said, it's going to be a major battle to get into a good position to start this climb, because it kicks up immediately. The first kilometre is 13%. This is the right-hand turn there. This is the climb that the riders came up yesterday in the individual time trial, the Côte de Domoncy. Rui Costa 7th overall in the Tour of Switzerland this year, 6th in the Tour of Romandy. He hasn't actually won a race since he was the national road race champion last year. But he obviously has shown great form in this last few days. And these look at these corners. They really are very tricky. He is prepared to take all of the risks. The little indicator there, 3 kilometers to the start of the climb now for Rui Costa. And the manager of Team Sky, Dave Brailsford, has said, as everybody knows, there's still 2 days to go in this Tour de France. Chris Froome feels in a strong position, but, you know, on a day like this with weather conditions and road conditions like this, Phil, anything could happen.
And it has. We've seen so many riders fall off, and we've seen the abandon of Tom Dumoulin and Michael Scherl. This is the rider cautiously... Oh, no, there's another crash. Oh, that is a nasty fall. 3 riders hitting the deck there.
Well, I'm hearing that Navarro is one of the riders who went down. Let's just have a look at this as we come into the corner. As I told you, these were tricky corners. That looks to me as if the first rider to go down was Eduardo Sepulveda, the Argentinian rider. On the far side, that's Navarro, the rider in the red jersey, and the race doctor is there up alongside him. That's Danny Navarro. Oh, there's another rider gone off the road too there. And it was a rider from Trek Segafredo. Now look, straight on, he just can't control his machine. He's got the back wheel locked up, and he just managed to stop before he exited the route. Wow.
Well, we are hearing that Froome has crashed. We have got no pictures yet. And there he is on the road. Froome has fallen.
Well, this is the one thing that everybody who leads a race like the Tour de France has to be afraid of. And he's going to... In fact, his bike must be seriously damaged because he's swapping machines with a teammate and he's off riding again.
And look at his team all around him as they came round. They were amazed, but they're so cleverly drilled. They knew exactly what to do. Froome away and the peloton is still descending.
Well, it's all about, Phil, having a plan. And let's have a quick look and a number of... Look at that. You see, these roads, when you lay new tarmac, Phil, and you put a little bit of moisture on it, it's almost impossible to hold your bike upright.
Well, I'm not sure, but I think that was Dario Aru with him. It looked like a 7 on his number, Fabio Aru.
Well, I'm hearing that Bardet has, in fact, come out of the front of the main field as well now to join his teammate Scherl. He's in second wheel there as they start to go through Domoncy. Now, this is the opposite way that they were racing yesterday. Wow.
Well, we think that was Vincenzo Nibali who crashed with Chris Froome at that time. Froome is now not on his bike. I think he's on the bike of Mikel Nievi here as he's gone back up to his teammates.
Well, let's put it into perspective a little bit, Phil. He's got 3 minutes 52 seconds at the start of the day over Bauke Mollema, who's also had at least one crash on that descent, and I'm not getting any information at the moment on the position of Bauke Mollema. Yeah. And I think he, in fact, was involved in a second accident going around one of the corners. Here we go. Well, it looks as if that could have been Bauke Mollema there, because that was a couple of riders from Trek Segafredo.
Well, the rain has had its say in the Tour de France today. This man is still clear. 10 kilometers to go for Rui Ferreira da Costa. Give him his full name as he pushes on now. Scherl here is going forward now with Romain Bardet. There is the yellow jersey of Chris Froome. He fell heavily on his side there. He's up against it, but he's got time in hand.
He is actually on Geraint Thomas's bike at the moment, number 9. So what I think he's going to have to do, Phil, and Geraint Thomas is roughly the same size as Chris Froome. That would have been the plan. That would have been why Geraint Thomas was hanging in there for as long as possible. But, you know, any professional bike rider in a situation like this, Phil, will want to get back onto his own bike, especially for a critical final climb like this one today.
But this is a huge moment here for Romain Bardet to climb onto the podium in Paris.
Sad to hear, Phil. I'm just hearing that the abandon has happened there. As we see this little move of Bardet almost touching the wheel of his teammate in front. I'm just hearing that Danny Navarro has had to abandon because of that accident on the descent of the Côte de Domoncy.
Well, he did look injured, and the doctors stayed a while with him, so they've obviously pulled him from the race. Let's hope he's okay. As the peloton is trying desperately to get itself together, the boys of Sky are here. Number 5 is Nieve.
Well, it was Kirienka doing a big turn on the front to pull Chris Froome back into this group. The other rider up there was the faithful lieutenant at Wout Poels. They're just about to make the junction, Phil, before the start of this climb. The maillot jaune, the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, is seriously ripped up.
We're looking at the youngster here, Romain Bardet. He is gaining most today as he goes out onto this stage sitting in 5th place. And he's gaining time now because Chris Froome is occupied trying to rejoin that very select chase group. Of the other riders overall, Yates, Quintana, Bardet, Mollema, they are spread out behind, but I don't think they're all together right now.
No, still the race situation. One leader is Rui Costa, but at just 41 seconds behind him is Romain Bardet, who is the Frenchman, Phil, who was also dreaming at the start of the day of a podium position.
Well, we're looking at the faithful team gathering around the Queen Bee there, because the yellow jersey may be damaged, but it's certainly full of fight, and there's no doubt about that. But the question is, where is number 61, Bauke Mollema? Because I thought I saw him go through the bushes.
I'm pretty sure it was him. He is currently off the back.
Adam Yates is here.
Yeah, up to the left-hand side in the white jersey, number 209. He looks reasonably comfortable. Slipping back, I noticed Stef Clement, the former Dutch national time trial champion. The question mark is, can Chris Froome, in this chaos at the moment, even risk changing machines and getting back onto his own machine when the team car eventually manages to catch up with him?
Well, Froome there, he always looks as though he's under pressure, and he rarely is, but he has that bowed approach to riding his bike. The team have been simply fantastic for him today. We're getting on to the last climb of the day, remember, which takes us up to 1,372 meters, and the finish.
Well, I'm hearing now, Phil, that Romain Bardet is just 30 seconds off the lone leader, Rui Costa. So the French could be getting not only a stage victory out of today's stage, but they could also be getting a man climbing onto the podium.
Well, he deserves it because he's been a most aggressive rider in this bike race, and he said this morning before the start he'll look for an opportunity and he'll go for it. Well, the opportunity fell in his lap in the rain. There he is.
And he is a very good bike handler. We've seen it on a number of occasions, maybe a little brash on occasions too, when he's taken advantage of the downhill parts of the course. And the fact that he's just passing the team curve there of Rui Costa indicates that very shortly he will have the former world champion from Portugal well in his sights.
He sits 4:57 behind Froome. Of course, he's gaining some of that, but Froome won't be too worried about that at the moment. But people like Richie Porte will be certainly worried. Nairo, Quintana, they stand to lose their places tonight to this man.
Well, they certainly do, but let's think about Froome. He's got a 4-minute and 16-second advantage over Adam Yates, and for the moment I'm still getting information that Bauke Mollema is off the back of this yellow jersey group. Froome, I'm sure, Phil, would like to have his team car come back up alongside him and try and get back onto his own machine.
Just 5 miles left to end this stage, 8.7 kilometers. That's all that's left. The cars in regularly aren't supposed to go near the riders on the climb now. It's a climb to the finish. You can't feed them, touch them, speak to them. It's now man for man. This is Da Costa on the front.
Sorry, Phil, there was that confirmation. It's 29 seconds separating these two riders. Last year, Romain Bardet was a joint leader of his squad. This year he came as the sole leader for AG2R. I'm just there. You can see him just in the background. I caught a quick glimpse of the AG2R jersey. He has now got Rui Costa well in his sights.
He's seen his chance and he's taken it. It's not a question of attacking when there's a man down. This has been a one-for-all race today, and Bardet has ridden it brilliantly. Mike is still in the mix here, despite that long breakaway. Still looking very cool at the back, number 37.
Well, Froome, you can never really tell though when you look at his number 6 got his hand up there. Wout Poels.
In our shot there too, Louis Menkes.
When a rider puts his hand up like that, Phil, he's calling to the race referee to call the team car forward, and I'm pretty sure that's to try and favour it to the movement up through the convoy of Team Sky to try and get Chris Froome back to one of his original machines.
Exactly, because he's about to go onto the mountain on a strange bike here, that of number 9, Geraint Thomas.
What a quick call, though, Phil, by Geraint Thomas, who was up alongside him. The first thing, you see, that's why you have to have a plan in a moment like this. You have to know exactly what you were going to do. And maybe for Team BMC, they never really had that plan. When Richie Porte had a similar, well, he had a flat tyre, but there was nobody to pass him a bike as they ran into the final few kilometres of stage number 2.
Porte is riding second red jersey at the front here now, and this was to be a test bed for Richie Porte today. But the man he would likely pass in the overall classification, because he trailed him by only 3 seconds, Bardet, is off up the road here trying to get on the podium in Paris.
Well, Adam Yates is solidly in this group, around about 10th or 15th position. Louis Menkes, the other rider in that Best Young Rider competition, is just hanging on the back of the group as well, a little bit further back in about 14th or 15th position. But the man really lighting it up today. Well, the French will have finally something to seriously cheer about with Romain Bardet.
Win or lose, the French love this rider because he's a pure entertainer. And that's the big thing about Romain Bardet. It's all right losing a race, but there's ways to lose a race, and this guy goes out fighting, and this is a terrific fight back today.
Well, you've got to remember that he finished in 2nd place overall in the Criterium de Dauphiné, but that just up the road there is what he's been looking for a long time. He's finally got sight of the man in the pink and blue jersey of Lampre, Rui Costa. Once he sees him, he will feel so much more inspired that he can catch him, go past him, and try and build as much time as possible over the other contenders in the standings. But for the Frenchman, Bardet, Phil, he's not thinking about winning the stage here. He's thinking also about winning the stage and getting himself onto the podium in Paris.
Astana are down to a couple of riders here before Aru himself is going to have to go. He's the 3rd bluish jersey in this lineup here. They're on the climb up to the finish. The road must be glacial now. The French spotting a Frenchman in the lead here. No Frenchman's won a stage of this year's Tour de France. Flags of the Basque Country of Spain. Flags of Belgium. Costa looks over his shoulder. He's seen him coming.
But look at the pedaling style of Bardet, though, Phil. He's still got a very low gear in, nice and supple. That indicates he's still got plenty of gas in the tank at this moment, and he's eating into that advantage of Rui Costa with almost every pedal stroke that he makes. He's got not very much more time now before he actually catches the Portuguese rider, and in about a kilometre time he'll get to an easier part of the course. Still a long way down, trying to defend his 2nd position in the overall standings. Briefly there was Bauke Mollema.
So 2 versus the rest are what's left of the bunch in this year's Tour de France now, as they battle weather and attacks. The yellow jersey in trouble here. His right side of his jersey is ripped to shreds. We're hearing, did I hear 1:25 behind for Bauke Mollema? And here he is in our camera. He's now trying to get back. You don't deserve that sort of look when you've worked so hard, but Mollema's having to fight back, and he's only 7.5 kilometres from the top, slightly more. He crashed on that descent of the Côte de Domancy.
Well, he crashed once there, Phil. Then he was starting to take a few risks to try and get himself back into the yellow jersey group, and he crashed again. But also, Chris Froome went down on that same descent, and he very quickly received a bike from his teammate, Geraint Thomas. That is the machine that he's currently riding as we get closer to the finish. Still, there's a long way to go, Phil. A lot of climbing left to do, 7.3 kilometres. That's still almost 5 miles of climbing till we get to the finish.
Well, Bauke Mollema is out of the top 5 places in the Tour de France. He would slip to 6th at least if he doesn't close that gap at the moment. It would put Yates up into 2nd place, Quintana into 3rd, and Bardet, the rider we're watching now, into 4th. And it might even be that Bardet would go up into 3rd or 2nd if he continues like this. Boy, if French voices can pull you over a mountain now, it'll work for Romain Bardet.
Also starting to move up there, I notice Purito, Joaquim Rodriguez, Dan Martin moving to the front of that group. But this man, you have to feel a bit sorry for the man who has been sitting in second place overall throughout the whole of this last week of the race, and he robbed maybe of a podium position because of first of all, a nasty climb, and then an almost exiting of the road, trying to catch up.
Just got a real good shout from a Dutch encampment there, shouting Bouke, Bouke, to try and get him through on that corner. There's still a long way to go till it gets even worse as we continue the climb. It's slightly easier now for the moment. We've done that initial black section. Still more black sections before the top as they come up towards the line.
Well, it's almost, well, we are in a ski resort, so it's very much like looking at the black descents here, but in cycling, it's all about the black ascents, and they're climbing up to 9% now. Have a quick look at this. Froome moving up there, still not on his own machine. He moves up alongside Richie Porte as if to say, hey, Richie, I'm still here. Keep a close eye on me. I know what I have to do today. I've got a big buffer over everybody else. Onto his wheel, it's Nairo Quintana, just a little bit further back there with Alejandro Valverde.
Wout Poels adjusts the glasses. He's obviously been told by Froome to move him nearer the front. He is an incredible pacemaker.
40 seconds, Phil, is the difference between the yellow jersey group and Bauke Mollema. He's at the moment defending himself fairly well, but has he just got the power? We know he's got the form. He's shown that with a fairly sensible individual time trial yesterday, but what a way to try and defend second place overall there. Just quickly noticing the dark blue jersey, that was Dan Martin, up into about 5th, 6th position in this line.
These riders have held their own right on the mountain. Moreno on the back, the same suspects in the group towards the end of a tough alpine stage. Moreno are probably getting ready to be detached from that leading group. Bauke Mollema on his own, no teammates, no help, and he's trying to grind his way back into this Tour de France. His podium place at the moment is out of the window.
And you know what, Phil? I still think there are more attacks to come. The Astana rider a few positions back there, you could see just looking around. Well, that was Fabio Aru. He is waiting for his moment to try and grasp himself a stage victory if he can. The difference between the leaders and the yellow jersey group now is 45 seconds, and Astana are really digging deep. That's Wout Poels in second position, the lieutenant for Chris Froome in the yellow. Richie Porte, look at the grimace starting to come up to his face.
Dan Martin tucked in on the wheel of Richie Porte. Adam Yates is tagged onto the back, so is Louis Meintjes, the top two young riders in this race. The gap of chase number 2, which is behind, 1:30 back.
That is Caruso just in front of Richie Porte. There's the 91. There's Dan Martin, number 184. Nairo Quintana, the next rider through. Roman Kreuziger, number 36. Adam Yates in the white and in the pink and blue jersey of Lampre Merida. Still Louis Meintjes sitting there, dreaming about a top 10 finish overall for an African rider.
5 kilometres, the gap 45 seconds gain for Bardet at the moment. That would put him in to second place in the Tour de France if he continues like that. And the French would go absolutely beside themselves. Incredible ride if it hangs on. He's got to win by at least 45. He'd get a small bonus as well. 10 seconds if he wins the day, and he'd move into second place.
Now it's Caruso moving forward, Phil, into first position in the yellow jersey group, and all of a sudden I think they're trying to set up for a late attack from Richie Porte, who himself was delayed by an accident out on the course.
Under 5 kilometres to go. Caruso is the last man now before Porte will make an effort if he can.
Sergio Henao, the Colombian teammate of Chris Froome, has moved into third position, but let's not forget there are two leaders still in this race. On the front for France, Romain Bardet wearing number 41. With him, Rui Costa, a former world champion, a former Portuguese champion, and a man who this year showed that he was coming up into form.
I'll tell you what, the gap is now coming out from the race. It's coming down to 34 seconds with these two riders up front. So the yellow jersey group is closing in.
They don't give gifts away like this on a decisive stage. Jarlinson Pantano now is alongside the man wearing 61, second overall at the start of the day, Bauke Mollema. That rocking style shows he's really pulling himself inside out here to defend that position. The yellow jersey group there, you get now, Phil, the confirmation. It's down to 34. Well, it's gone back up to 35 seconds, but there is a big, big chase.
Bauke Mollema on the defensive at the moment. Trying so hard to close it down, but the people this group is at full cry now, every second counting. Chris Froome isn't in any trouble of losing that yellow jersey at the moment. He might lose a minute if it goes that way. That won't worry him at all. It happened last year, but it was Quintana doing that to him. Halved his lead in the last 2 days in the mountains.
Warren Barguil is the rider just sitting on the back. In front of him, Louis Meintjes. In front of Meintjes is Adam Yates. Adam Yates also dreaming of a podium position in Paris, but also hoping to carry away the white jersey as best young rider. These two riders now, Phil, their advantage down to around about the half-a-minute mark. Now, they're just going through the easiest part of this climb, if I can say any part of this climb is easy, but then once they get to around about 4 kilometers to go, and that's where they are now, it kicks up again to 10%.
Well, is it going to be where Froome decides? Because they've opened the gap on Froome here, and Richie Porte, if he's... And look at this, Quintana's closing the gap. That's not an attack, that's to go with the move. And that's what Quintana has done throughout this race. He's never attacked.
Well, Wout Poels there, Phil, just looked over his shoulder and he just waited for the yellow jersey. Let's not forget the yellow jersey is not riding his own personal machine. He's riding Geraint Thomas's machine that was passed across to him. Quintana, though, Phil, was very attentive. He saw the acceleration, he saw the gap.
The Frenchman who could be climbing to second overall in the Tour de France tonight. A terrific attack by Romain Bardet, the face of Caruso here. He's trying to put Richie Porte into a point where he could try and attack, because he's not going to climb up much if he doesn't.
Well, Caruso, they have said, is one of the best helpers on BMC for Richie Porte here. He's turned out to, well, we've been through the Savoie region and we've been through Switzerland. He's turning out to be the Saint Bernard, the big dog that looks after people in the mountains, and that's certainly what Caruso has turned out to be. Barguil has now been dropped off the back of the group.
He might come back. He's pedaling quite smoothly, but he's been yo-yoing off the back for quite a while, actually. He might get back on there. Let's go up to the two leaders. No, this is Bauke Mollema here. He's got a good pacemaker now in Jarlinson Pantano. He needed to meet somebody of this quality on the climb, but he's dropping away from it.
Well, I've got Bauke Mollema 1 minute and 15 seconds off the back of the yellow jersey group, and 1 3/4 minutes, Phil, off the back of the leaders on the road. Dan Martin's just gone over the top. I just noticed the black and blue jersey of Ethics Quickstep. He is in 10th place overall at the start of the day, and he's looking to try and move up. He's only 3 seconds behind Louis Meintjes in the overall standings.
And he might well get this, because we've also got at the front, Barguil's just gone. He's left, and he's left at 3.2 kilometers from the finish. Remember, the winner gets a 10-second added bonus to his time for the day, and that could consolidate his time. This is a great effort by the Frenchman.
Well, that, Phil, is because they're getting into the steepest part of the climb again. They're up to around about 9.5%. This is a very difficult climb. Wout Poels just looks over his shoulder. He will try and nurse Chris Froome up this climb if he can. Oh, I thought that was going to be a move by Froome.
Here we go. This is Porte. Porte looks across. Quintana's marking Porte. Quintana's after him immediately. And a reaction, though, from Sky, but they take a little time to get into the rhythm. They don't lift the pace too much. Up to 3 kilometers from the finish, Romain Bardet is out to make the gains that could put him on the podium in Paris.
Well, Richie Porte now sees this as an opportunity. Quintana also moving up to second position. The Sky Riders now, Phil, they're looking over their shoulders. They've got to nurse their leader. You have to remember, he's still got a good buffer over everybody else in the overall standings, while all of a sudden, Wout Poels comes up to the front there ahead of Sergio Henao.
Zakharine going through in the red jersey here, right alongside. Meintjes in that mauvish top to his jersey there. Rui Costa now split, as this is Dan Martin now gaining ground and climbing over Menkes in the overall classification.
Well, it's a strange style of Dan Martin, a bouncing style that keeps the pedals going round quite rapidly. His distance behind Roman Bardet is not much more than about 30 seconds, so he too now can start to dream about a stage victory for Ireland.
And Adam Yates is in trouble, Adam Yates. And this is another gain today, possibly for Louis Menkes, because he went inside 3 minutes yesterday after the time trial, because he beat Adam in the time trial. And also unhitching now is Michael Lander.
Well, unhitching a little bit further on as well is the yellow jersey, as now the reaction coming from Joachim Rodriguez to try and chase down Dan Martin.
And this is Bauke Mollema here. He's unhitched actually from Jarlinson Pantano. So the big effort has really hurt Bauke, and it's going to reflect in a big time loss tonight. Well, if Rodriguez goes forward here, and it certainly is Rodriguez, they've caught Martin. The effort to catch Martin also caught Chris Froome, but he's got back.
Impressive ride by the South African, though, Phil, because Louis Menkes has moved right onto the wheel of Rodriguez. And Fabio Aru, well, the man we expected to attack, he's scrambling to stay in contact with Chris Froome.
How this race changed over the last 50 kilometres today with the weather, I might add. And out the front has popped a Frenchman who's converting a 5th place overall to a possible 2nd place tonight. Terrific piece of riding. As we're watching now Chris Froome riding his teammate's bike, just hanging in with these boys. The situation at the start of the day was 3:52 back, 2nd place Mollema's, 4:16 to Yates, 4:37 to Quintana, 4:57 to Bardet. Bardet's recuperated all of his time lost, except, of course, to the yellow jersey.
Well, Phil, as if to say I might have been down, but I'm certainly not out. Chris Froome in the yellow jersey comes up alongside his teammate Wout Poels there in the blue sky jersey on the right-hand side, saying it's okay, I'm all right. Let's show these guys that I've still got the power that's taken me to 1st place overall. Quintana over to the left-hand side in the Movistar jersey with his sunglasses into his helmet. But Adam Yates...
This is Yates trying to just... No, he's not panicking here. He's going to ride himself back on. He's come back up to them. They've all tried to get some time and tried to reach Bardet. They've all failed, but Port is going to try once more. At 2 kilometres to go, he kicks again.
And look who's responded immediately onto the wheel of Richie Port is Nairo Quintana. Quintana was waiting for this last week. He's talked about the last week, and Richie Port knows today it's important for him. He's looking for 1:08 to try and climb up into 2nd place overall, 44 seconds if he can get onto the podium, and that's what he wants after these of these 2 days of racing.
Well, on the left-hand side, looks as though Fabio Aru there was just trying as Yates is, well, the elastic stretched again. Louis Menkes still up near the front of this group as Yates tries to get onto the back. These last few days are proving pretty hard. Aru has gone now. He's put in an attack. He's got to attack after all the work his teammates have done today. They did it for him. Now he's got to gain something out of this stage.
Well, that's what he wants. That's why his team, Astana, did so much work over the majority of today's stage to toughen it up for this final climb of the day. He wants the stage victory, but he's got an awful lot of time to try and pull back on the leader, Roman Bardet. He's looking for around about 43 seconds. Port gets out of the saddle, Phil, just to try and nail back those final few meters, but brilliant riding by Louis Menkes there from South Africa to sit there in 4th position. Froome, on the other hand, he's still on the defensive.
The Frenchman, Roman Bardet, is being drawn to this finishing line now by the crowd. No French victory yet in this year's Tour de France. Costa goes back towards the group. Aru is coming back to try and get to him, using him as a carrot. Yates is just about hanging on by the skin of his racing shorts.
Well, talk about courage. The rider who leads the best young rider competition, he's just yo-yoing on the back. He finds the courage every now and again to scramble back into contact. He wants to make sure, Phil, that he can stay on the podium in Paris. Yes, he'd like to win the Best Young Rider competition, but he wants to be on the podium with all of the big names of the sport of professional cycling.
Well, the face of Da Costa says it all now. Aru is making a late dash for the line here. There's not a lot of time left. A few seconds is all he can hope for. This is Bardet at 1 kilometre to go. Remember that no Frenchman's won a stage. Romain Bardet is no stranger to a stage win. Aru is trying to drag any seconds just so he can say to his teammates tonight, thanks for your efforts. I got something out of it.
Well, Adam Yates now finally just trying to consolidate or limit his losses in a position like this. But I just noticed Alejandro Valverde has come to the front for Nairo Quintana. He's been looking at the other riders in this group and he sees the possibility of nailing back Aru and maybe in this final 1.5 kilometres or so, maybe trying to set something up for Nairo Quintana. There is the kilometre flag.
Well, Richie Porte now paying for the chase. A kilometre to go. He's just hanging on to the back wheel of Rodriguez and Chris Froome here. There's no time gains for these boys now inside the last kilometre. A couple of seconds is the best they can hope for as they continue. Again, another sterling ride by Wout Poels, the teammate of Chris Froome. Bardet now is going to win this stage, the second ever in the Tour de France, but more for him. He could be in second place overall tonight, and that will mean an awful lot to France.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, if we had to give a man of the match for the Tour de France, I probably would like to give it to Alejandro Valverde, a man who's ridden this race for his teammate Nairo Quintana. Froome has been dislodged, but let's not forget he's got a big buffer at the end of the day. He's on limiting his losses at a moment like this, but Richie Porte, he went out, he did the moves, he tried the attacks, but, you know, he's come unstuck inside of the final kilometre.
Well, he's been also suffered such bad luck today. He's been off the back, he's got back on, he's attacked, he's gone off the back again. He's losing seconds possibly. He was 3 seconds behind Romain Bardet at the start of this stage. It seemed a formality to go over him, but Romain Bardet is breaking out a smile on this tough day. And we'll start the watches when he crosses the line, remembering he'll get a 10-second win bonus as well. He could be second tonight in the Tour de France.
Well, he needed at the start of the day, Phil. Look at him shaking his head. He's got to keep going, though, because he started the day 20 seconds behind Nairo Quintana. And as you mentioned, 10 seconds time bonus. If he crosses the line 10 seconds ahead of Quintana, boom, he overtakes Quintana in the overall standings. And he's still fighting for time, fighting for the victory, and fighting for France.
He's not worried about Quintana. He's going to wipe them all out except Chris Froome with his ride up here today. Listen to the crowd on top of the Betex. Well, our commentary box is vibrating here. Romain Bardet, the French have waited all Tour de France for a stage winner. They nearly left it too late, but now they've not only got a stage winner from France, Romain Bardet could well be second overall in the Tour de France tonight.
Well, it's Purito Rodriguez now coming forward. On his wheel is Alejandro Valverde. Louis Meintjes is right up there as well, and right on their wheel is Nairo Quintana.
And Louis Meintjes here making more gains on Adam Yates in that white jersey competition. This has been his best day in the Tour de France as he heads up to the line, 23 seconds down, so they close right in on him.
Well, where is Chris Froome? Here he is, Phil. Let's not forget, he did have a big buffer at the start of the day, 3:52 over second place. The clock there, he's lost 37 seconds on the winner of the stage, so maybe 10 or 12 seconds on everyone else, but that is a reflection of bon courage.
A horrible day. Here's Porte. He also lost time in the end. And Adam Yates at the back here losing time. He needs to lose 2:59 on Meintjes, and he's not losing that. But Meintjes continues to close in and climb up the overall. Well, amazing scenes at the finishing line. And Chris Froome, well, he thanked his teammates immediately. He came over that finishing line, and he's finished on a strange bike. It must have been his worst day in the Tour de France, that.
Well, we're now waiting for the man who started, as we see Romain Bardet in the celebrations for AG2R La Mondiale and for France. I just wonder where, Phil, Bauke Mollema is.
Well, we'll find out, but I think they came up too quick for the winner to go second overall.
Well, he was waiting for the information to come through to him well down the slopes here, and you wouldn't wish this on anybody really, not just one crash but multiple crashes for Bauke Mollema. Started the day second place in the overall standings. He is losing a huge chunk of time here. Well, at the moment I have him around about 2:09 behind the winner, but 1 minute and 34 seconds behind the yellow jersey, and the clock is still counting for Bauke Mollema. These 2 days, everybody talked about them. Everyone said after the rest day, the final few days of racing in the Tour de France were going to be spectacular. Well, if today's anything to go by, roll on tomorrow, because we've got to do a very similar race route tomorrow to this one today. And you can still see on the left-hand side there, his shorts are ripped open from that crash. But today, finally, is a day that belongs to France. Well, it was Rodriguez got across the line there in second place, Valverde third, Louis Meintjes of South Africa in fourth position at 22 seconds, and also right up there as well, Nairo Quintana fifth, Fabio Aru in sixth place.
No, the French director had the time to run a couple of Romain Bardet slow-mos before Mollema himself slow-moed his way up the last steep ramp on his own to finish 4 minutes 26 down. This tour was close to having no French stage win, but when it came, it was no consolation ride, but a daring attack by Romain Bardet to put himself onto the podium. We'll get to the GC in a moment, but there's the stage result. Rodriguez, Valverde and Meintjes were 23 seconds behind Bardet in the end, with 2-second gaps then behind them to Nairo Quintana and the pair of Fabio Aru and Dan Martin. Wout Poels brought Chris Froome in 36 seconds after the winner. Richie Porte was at 53 seconds and Adam Yates at 56 seconds. Mollema was 3.5 minutes behind him.
Yeah, I just crashed. I was in second position of the peloton, and there was a really tricky part coming up. Yeah, I felt good in the descent. I followed Chirel from AG Deuxerre, and my front wheel slided away, and yeah, then I was on the ground. I was quite fast back on the bike, and I was on a gap, and yeah, then you start to climb 20 seconds back, and I couldn't close it. Yeah, I think the classement is gone. Yeah, I think I'm still 10, but that was not the goal for these last days.
Things didn't go exactly to plan for Adam Yates either. He's lost a chunk of his lead in the white jersey competition, although he still leads Louis Meintjes by more than 2 minutes. Paul Mollema is now 10th, 7:42 behind Chris Froome, and his misfortune means that Froome has actually increased his lead, with Romain Bardet now second at 4 minutes 11. Nairo Quintana is up to third at 4:27, displacing Adam Yates from the third podium spot by what should have been 9 seconds, but turned out to be 19 because Yates was penalised 10 seconds for getting a push from a teammate, which the cameras didn't see but the commissaires did. Richie Porte is up to fifth, but 17 seconds further behind than he was this morning. Aru, Valverde, Meintjes and Martin all move up a spot at Mollema's expense. Matt Rendell spoke to Adam Yates before either of them knew about the 10-second penalty.
Adam, a very difficult day. The problem seemed to start with a bike change. What happened there?
Yeah, I was having trouble with my gears and just needed a bike change. The problem was it came at a pretty bad time just before the first major climb, and well, the first real long one. And yeah, the problem was people were also like pulling the pin and like getting dropped just at the moment as I was getting back on, so it made it twice as hard just to get back on. So I wasted a lot of energy there, and then in the final I kind of ran out of legs. But really, at the end of the day, it's not too bad. I mean, it's my first bad day in 3 weeks at the Tour de France, so I'm still fourth on the general, and yeah, I'll have a shave, and tomorrow's another day.
And that podium's still in sight, though. There's just a tiny handful of seconds between all the riders vying for the podium.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, it would be a big battle for the podium. Yeah, and I'm still pretty close. Maybe I lost a spot, but tomorrow's a new day. And hopefully everyone spends some bullets today, and I can get away at the end and try something.
Chris Froome, you'd have to imagine, will be trying nothing tomorrow other than getting to the end in one piece. His crash ended up costing him no time, but he lost a fair bit of skin as well as the prospect of a decent night's sleep. He eventually took the podium with his right knee strapped quite a while after the other presentations.
Chris, can you tell us what happened basically on that descent before the final climb?
Yeah, well, it's ironic really. I was trying to stay up front, just trying to stay safe and out of trouble, and I think I just hit one of the white lines on the road and just lost my front wheel.
Major fright. How are you? How are you physically?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I'm lucky. Nothing seriously injured. Just lost a bit of skin, obviously, and banged my knee a bit. But really, I mean, today this is the kind of day that I feel grateful that I've got that 4-minute advantage. I could fall back on that a little bit, and obviously it was great for me to have teammates all the way up until the finish there. Wout in particular, all the guys. I mean, it was a great team effort today, and just feels good to be one day closer now to Paris.
Because you've always said that the Tour was never won until the finish line in Paris.
Yeah, and today shows exactly why. I mean, a crash like that today, I'm really grateful. Obviously, nothing seriously injured, but it could have gone either way there, and yeah, I mean, never a quiet day on the Tour.
You finished on Geraint Thomas's bike, that's correct?
Yeah, that's right. I knew the car was quite a while back, and my bike, I could see it wasn't rideable after the crash, and thanks a lot to Geraint for his bike. Yeah, rode that to the finish. That was all right.
I suppose you're a bit worried before tomorrow's stage. It's going to be another very, very difficult stage, especially in your condition.
Yeah, certainly. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Tomorrow's going to be really hard. I'm sure I'm going to be a bit sore and stiff after today, but hopefully I can rely on my teammates and just one last push to get through tomorrow's stage now.
And finally, all post-stage obligations fulfilled. Froome left in a team car a good hour after the stage had finished.